Hey everybody, welcome to MUSE TV. We are back, Muse News by Muse. We're having another great conversation with Mando Fresko. His friend Mando and was it Mando and Friends is on
Yep.
season three now. You're in the middle of season three. Uh, let's start this with just going with the obvious. What has it been like? 3 seasons. You're already halfway through. What has this experience been like for you?
Yeah, it's been a beautiful one. It's been quite the journey. I mean, for all of us, right? In the last 2 years, we kicked off Mando and Friends at the very peak of the pandemic. We were working on the show. Everything shut down in March, and in April we started working on the show, trying to make something happen. Now, the biggest challenge was, okay, how do you get people to come to a show when everyone's in quarantine, everyone's locked down? We ended up starting to shoot around September of 2020, and even then, I mean, we had very uh, tight protocols with COVID. We were doing our interviews, Mike, through this like huge plexiglass in between, the guests and myself. But we made it happen, man. I mean, it was it was tough. It was challenging, but it was beautiful. And the conversations that we've had, I think a lot of people have benefited from these combos, and including myself, man. I feel like I learn something new every single episode.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's the one thing like I really wanted to touch upon in the beginning of this as we get in through the interview is and our talk is the fact that during this pandemic it was very hard to just get through it. Like we've had a hard time getting through it. So I can
Yeah.
only imagine starting a project during the middle of the pandemic when it makes it very difficult for people to you can't really be around them, and if you are, you're pretty much in a plexiglass box just to talk to
Yeah.
them and to find an audience and everything like that. It made it very difficult. What was that experience for you like to be able to not only start something but also grow something to where it is now?
You know, I always love to work and go against the grain, man. I've done that my entire career. A Latino Mexican American kid that I grew up in Southgate, which is not too far from Hollywood, right? But
Mhm.
at the same time, it is very far from
Yeah.
Hollywood. People think that because we live in Los Angeles, it's easier to hop into the entertainment business, and it's not. I didn't have anyone in the entertainment industry. I didn't know anyone. I didn't have a deal that
Mhm.
happened to be, the program director at a radio station or something like that. So it's always been, for me, going against the grain, swimming uphill, as they say. And when it came to Mando and Friends, I knew it was going to be a hard task. I knew that it wasn't going to be easy. There's a lot of obstacles, that came in that were in front of us. But you know what? It was very fulfilling. And episode one was as challenging as anything could be, when it comes to putting the project together. But it was a beautiful journey. The beautiful struggle. One of my favorite rappers, his name is Talib Kweli, and he would always say the beautiful struggle. He has an album called The Beautiful Struggle, and that's what life is. Ultimately, that's what episode 1 through 24 of season one was. Season two was a lot smoother. Season three has just kind of piggybacked off of season one and two. So season three has been amazing, a lot easier in the sense of just bringing guests in, and now, Mando and Friends just kind of laying down the flag, of what the show is, and people are aware of it now. It's grown a lot. Over 300 million impressions and streams, globally, top part of the top 10% of most popular podcasts globally. and that's what makes me really happy, man, Mike. The fact that it's we're Latinos, and we always want to do something that impacts our gente, our people, and this show is impacting our people, our Latino, Latina, Latinx, Latinidad, and also the general population as well. I mean, the masses now. It has transcended cultures, up to this point.
And the one thing I want to touch on that you mentioned is being from Southgate. Like I grew up in
Yeah,
Rosemead. I went to school in East
nice.
LA. So it's like when you think of the landscape of LA, they never think of the East Side and what the East Side has done
Yeah,
and what the East Side has developed. And when you look, we're both guys from the San Gabriel Valley. For this is our area, this is our home, and yet like you said, it felt far away. Like because we didn't have any, I didn't have anybody,
right,
you didn't have anybody in the industry. It isn't like we got that push. We just did it,
right,
and that's
right.
what I think is encouraging to a lot of younger kids is that the fact of geolocation from where you are in this business doesn't mean it's going to stop you. And I think you're a perfect point on why that is such a key thing, just to do it and not look at the
Oh
geography
yeah,
of everything.
definitely. I think the communities that both you and I grew up in, Mike, we're not told that is an option.
Mhm,
You know, doing something that is entertainment or in music or in film, TV, anything like that, and radio. It's so far fetched.
mhm,
I was always into music. I was always the artsy kid in class, but not once did I ever hear, yeah, hey, you could be an artist, or you can be hey, you could be on the radio one day. You could be a host on TV. It was never That was never the case. It was always these traditional careers that are um, taught and are always waved in front of us, including in my immediate traditional Mexican household. It was always like, hey, debes de trabajar en un banco. You have to work at a bank.
mhm,
You have to be a doctor. You have to be a lawyer, and those are amazing, very respectable careers. But there's so many options, especially now more than ever. You know that,
mhm,
Mike. I mean, and that's what I try to do with my content. And the reason why we created Mando and Friends was to kind of pull back the curtain and show our listeners, our fans, our gente, our people that it could be done. And everyone's journey is different,
mhm,
but at the same time very similar. A lot of the struggles that I went through to get into this field, into this industry, are a lot of the same struggles that I've heard from our guests. And it's nice to hear that. It kind of makes you feel like there's hope, and hey, if there's a 15-year-old kid watching our show, they're like, wow, like this, you're telling me that this guy was a valet driver. We had Chris Estrada, who's a an actor, comedian, writer, part of Hulu's show called This Fool. And Chris Estrada is a co-creator of that show as well. He came on, and he didn't start his career in entertainment until he was 28, 29 years old. And prior to that, he was a valet driver. He worked in construction. He was like job to job, and he himself didn't think it was a possibility. And once he went for it, obviously it happened for him. I mean, guys on one of the biggest shows in the nation right now. Most stream shows out, and he just got signed to season 2, which I'm really excited for him for that. But yeah, I mean, this is what we're trying to do is motivate and inspire our listeners and our viewers, and show them, hey, if we did it, you can too.
yeah, and I think that's what needs to be out there. They need to see more of us to get that
Yeah,
opportunity, to see that that opportunity is possible. And nothing could stop you. They can't stop you. These glass ceilings could be broken, and we need to make sure that we show that, especially in our community. One question I do want to ask you about is your style of interviewing, because you're like us when we first started. They're not interviews; they're
Yeah,
conversations or talks. They're like if we've known each other. Like I train even my students like this. Like if we've known each other for years, even though it's the first time that you ever met them, it's
yeah.
a conversation of what's going on. What brought you to that style? Because it's a very good style and a very good format and way to do a show nowadays. And that's what I think a lot of more people are doing. What brought you to that style, and what really wanted you to get to that point?
You know, that's a great question. It essentially is just who I am, Mike. It's part of my personality. I uh, started in radio when I was 18 years old, and there are a lot of ways to go about an interview in radio. Most of the most popular way is quick questions, kind of sort of like rapid fire, just throwing a question after question. Um, and it's always a question to try to trigger something in the guest. It's always trying to get that viral moment, that big headline, right? Like asking a celebrity, a public figure, excuse me, about um, another celebrity or another public figure. Hey, what do you think about so and so getting married to so and so?
Mhm,
And I that was never me. Even though I tried to do it for a while because that was like the template of asking questions. I mean, it still is essentially. Um, it wasn't me, Mike. For me, it was. It just didn't feel real, and that's why I say with Mando and Friends, it's my life's work. It's everything that I've done in radio and television. Starting at 18 years old, over 15 years in media now, and what felt natural to me was just this way of having a conversation. I think there's a lot of people that feel, especially as if you start young, you try to mimic what other top players are doing, right? Like, oh, I want to, be the next X. Oh, I like how Y person interviews. Like, so you try to mimic that. You try to grab things from them, and essentially, what works for you and what best works for all of us, I think, is just to be yourself,
yeah.
and that's what made this conversational way of interviewing what felt personal to me.
Mhm. And that's what I like to hear. I like to see that. I like to see that old school style in this new format is still around. You still got you get this a great conversation, and it's about what they do, not really about who they're with or what they're who what other people are doing. It's about them. And I've always loved that type of format. Because it's just I mean, you want to know about them. You don't want to know about who what they're doing around the people around them. It's like shoot.
Yeah,
Mhm,
yeah, no, exactly, yeah, and it's essentially Mondo and Friends is, I think the reason why it's done so well is um, the guest gets to speak
mhm,
uh, about themselves and their journey, and it's not speaking about themselves in an ego driven way. It's speaking about themselves, about the challenges, the struggles, the ups, the downs. I'm asking these questions that I feel are important for our listeners and our viewers to hear. It's not just all glam. I mean,
yeah,
I it has. Oh, I mean, I've been like I mentioned, I've been in the industry for many years. But even having these conversations with people that I've been a fan of, I've admired, for years growing up, that have been on the show, it's opened my eyes. Right, I'm
mhm,
like, wow. it's wow. I thought it was a different way, or I thought, I thought sometimes it was all glam, or the lifestyle of being entertainment is definitely not what people think it is, and I think that's the beauty of the show, is that it's just so honest, Mike. It's transparent, and because of it, our numbers have done great, because it's engaging, it's connecting to our audience, but at the same time, it's directly connecting to the guests that we have in that chair.
Mhm.
They feel like it's so real, it's so authentic, that they themselves want to talk about being on Mando and Friends. Like, hey, I sat down with Mando, I sat down, and like you said, sometimes it may be the first time that I've ever sat in front of someone, and it still feels authentic and relatable to them, and they want their viewers or fans or followers to see the real them. And being on all these other platforms, traditional media, whether it's radio, TV, if you're on a big late night talk show, they get maybe 5 minutes max on that platform, and all they do is talk about their latest film or TV show, projects XYZ. And here it's a whole hour, and sometimes plus, of them, a platform for them to just talk about everything that makes them who they are, and from beginning to where their careers now. And I think that's why it resonates with our guests and our viewers and listeners.
Yeah, and I agree with you completely about that one. The one question I do want to ask you now too is what the landscape looks like now, because we're seeing a changing landscape when it comes to podcasting, not only and video podcasting. It's growing. We're seeing a growth. There's a lot of competition out there, and we're also seeing, and that should be good and bad too, when it comes to voices and images and what they want to do. The one thing I love about your show, it stayed the same. You haven't changed to cater to anybody or anything. You've got your format, and there it is. What are you seeing now with this landscape? Because we're seeing a lot of changes going on, and what are you hoping that in the next 5 years, what this landscape's going to look like?
When it comes to podcasting, Mike.
Yeah, to podcasting and video casting, because it is, the industry's changing a lot, and it's changed a lot, especially after the
Yeah,
pandemic and during the pandemic.
yeah. I mean, it's definitely, vlogging was a big thing, right? At one point, everyone wanted to be a vlogger. I think a lot of people want to be podcasters now. I remember when being in radio, I would always run into people, and they say, "Oh man, your job is so cool. I always wanted to be on the radio."
Mhm.
And now you can, now you can have your own radio show, as a podcast. And I think it's going to continue to grow, man. I think people love to, give their 2 cents. They love to give their opinions on different topics, and I think it's a beautiful thing, man. It's just another way, another platform, for people to express themselves, and also to potentially even make money, make a career out of it. Um, I think, when it comes to the what is it, the competition, I mean, I think it's great. I think it makes the product better. Um, at the same time, I don't see, anyone as competition, to be honest with you. And I've been that way for a long time, man. Especially as, when it comes to our fellow, Latinos.
Mhm.
Um, Man, I want to, and that's why I think it's great that to be invited on your show, Mike, because we have to continue to lift each other up,
Yeah.
and it's not a competition. There's enough room for all of us to win, and I think that's that. Hey, if someone says, "Hey, man, should I start my podcast?" I'm like, "Yes, do it." And if you believe in yourself, if you have, the work ethic to do it, because it is work. You want
Yeah.
something to really take off, you got to put in the work, man. There's no excuses. There's no way around it. I've had peers that come to me, that are in the industry, and they're like, "Hey, Mando, how do you do this? How'd you do that?" Or and I take the time, Mike. I take the time to like have a conversation with them, and even guests that have been on the show. They look around at our HQ here. They're like, "Oh man, this is cool." Um, show me your ways, and that's what I do. I really do. I'm not one to keep the secrets to myself. I think I'm happy to show people how to fish,
Mhm.
instead of just giving you a fish, right? And I think more of us need to do that, man. And you yourself, by having me on here, is a prime example of that, man. The only way we can continue to grow is by lifting each other up.
Mhm. And I agree with you completely because, like, even with other outlets that are Latino owned, I'm like, you may think that I'm act treating you like competition, but I'm trying to get you to motivate you to get better. Because
Yeah,
if we're not at like if we're not at all equality, somebody will look at us and put us down. If we could all be at quality and we could all lift ourselves up and be at that level, we wind up taking a share of that market.
for
And you take
sure.
that business experience that I've seen over the years and bring it to that, and you see that, and it works. I mean, if everybody's quality, people are going to start looking and saying, "Hey, let's bring up Mando, let's bring up MUSE TV, let's bring up a couple other outlets that are Latino owned, and let's bring them up to the spotlight." And it's like baseball; it's the same friggin' thing. You play in the minor leagues. If you get in that one team where everybody's good, they're going to start looking at you. So,
Right, right.
mhm. Yeah. So, couple fun questions that we have left until we close this out. But favorite interview? Who did you love interviewing the most?
I get asked that question a lot, and it's tough.
Mhm.
But the first person that always comes to mind is Taboo of the Black Eyed Peas. Um, I think there's a special connection with Taboo, because when I was doing college radio, I was 18 years old, and I walked into my college radio station. And the reason why I walked in the first place was because the Black Eyed Peas "Where Is the Love" was coming out of the campus radio station speaker. And the campus radio station was like this little tiny radio station on campus, and it had the tiniest little speaker outside. And "Where's Love" was playing, and I'm like, wow, that's cool. And then I heard someone speaking about the Grammys, and Black Eyed Peas, being nominated, and I'm like, oh wow, wait, this is the college radio station. So I walked in, and that's what like first caught my attention to get into radio. And then years later, excuse me, I have them on my show, and we're singing "Where Is the Love" together. And if that's not the biggest full circle moment, man, I don't know what is.
Hey, those are the great moments. Those are the moments that when people don't realize when you get somebody like that and you build that connection, and then no, the best thing is that afterwards when they remember who you are when you're walking just down the street,
Yeah.
those moments are like they blow me away sometimes as well. During those times.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. Think about that. I mean, the reason why I walked into my college radio station was because I heard a Black Eyed Peas song, and I thought that's so cool. At that point, I'm just like this young 18-year-old college kid, who just graduated high school from Southgate High, not thinking I'm gonna have a career in entertainment, radio, or music, or anything like that. And then years later, the guy that I once heard coming out of that speaker that caught my ear, my eye, is you're now friends with, and you're now singing this. I literally was singing a song that was the song with him, right? I was singing the Justin Timberlake song part, and I'm like, people, what is it? People killing, people crying, shoulder
Mhm.
her to hear they cry, and then he starts rapping, and I'm like, what? And then I'm like, I'm coming in as he's rapping some parts, and I'm like, bro, just sign me as the fourth Black Eyed Pea already, man. I'm ready.
Exactly, exactly. We're all from the east side. Come on, let's go. Let's go.
Yeah,
And that's what's cool. That's what's cool about hearing that from you and about the business. Uh yeah, to close it all up, I really just want to ask, like, where do you see Mando Fresco in the next 5 years? Because I think you have something that could really jump into television, into different types of formats, and I think you have something here that's in year 5, 6, in year 10, we could see something even bigger.
yeah, I want to agree with you, man, and I hope that your words to the sky and you know these dreams come true. I'd love to have Mando and Friends on a big platform, a big streaming platform, to be on a Netflix,
Mhm.
to be on a platform like that. I think would be massive. I think it's something that our culture needs. I being in the entertainment for such a long time, man, and I know you understand
Mhm.
this is we're often marginalized to be fit into this Latino box, right? Like, oh, he's Latino. I remember when I first started, man. MTV signed me as a host, and I'm like, oh, awesome! I'm going to be hosting on MTV. So they had me broadcasting on MTV Tres, which was their bilingual network. And I thought, okay, this is cool, but I want to do MTV proper. I want to do MTV. And eventually, and I made it to some MTV and MTV2.
Mhm.
But it's always the industry sees you and the top execs, sometimes most of the times, in my experience, they see us, and they want to put us in this box, this Latino box. And I think Mando and Friends is the show that I've been wanting to do. It's a show that it's about Latinidad, and now like I said, it's transcended cultures. So it's we have guests of all cultures, all ethnicities, and with a focus on Latino stories. But it's awesome, man, because it's not like we're I've told like, oh, spice it up, Mondo. Kind of like do a little more Spanglish, or do more Spanish, and then throw some English words in there, and that never felt authentic
Mhm.
to me, because it doesn't just people don't just. I mean, we speak Spanglish, sometimes, like, hey, me agarras esa cosa, yeah, that thing right there. Like, sure, we'll say it, but it's when you're asking someone to purposely do it, like forcing someone to do it, it just doesn't feel authentic, man. And on the show, we do speak Spanish and English and Spanglish sometimes, but it's what feels real and authentic 100% of the time. I don't have a producer in my ear saying, hey, Mondo, just can you be more Latino? And I think that's what we need in mass market, in mass media, is a show like this. So to to uh, to go back to what you said, man, I love to continue to do Mondo and Friends and see it grow. Now with we have billboards across the nation right now. We have these really big names, and I hope to continue having these great uh, big talented guests that come on and continue to get the word out on Mondo and Friends, because I think it's a special show, man. There's nothing like it, and it's positive, it's optimistic. It's not it's not anything. It's not what is you really see out in media, which is media gets a really bad rep because there's a lot of negativity out there, and I think this is the opposite. I think this is like um, the rainbow, at the end of I mean the what is it, the the golden pot at the end of the rainbow after the rain, comes through. I mean, this is like uh shining with positivity, man. I think this is what what the world needs, and we need more shows like this.
Yeah, and I agree 100%, Mondo. Thank you so much for being a part of us, a part of our show. Being now that we're at the end of our 10th anniversary, and you're one of the final over the next 2 weeks of guests that we've had on. So
Congrats.
thank you. I don't know how we made it 10 years, but we made it. But it's great to have you on
Beautiful.
our final episode, the final interviews that we have left for this decade of Muse TV. So I really appreciate you coming on board and talking with us about the show. Before we leave, how can people hear Mando and Friends?
Yeah, of course. So Mando and Friends is available wherever you get your podcast. We're available on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, SoundCloud, and of course, you can reach out to our page, hubwave.com. That's HUB as in boy, WAV as in Victor, hubwave.com. That's our media company. And you can find all of our content on there, including Mando and Friends. And of course, Mando and Friends is also available on YouTube. So go and do that. Also, follow us at Hubwave Media and at Mando Fresko.
Awesome, man. And if you want to check out his show, well, we're going to be putting links in the bottom of the description. Except for Roku and Amazon Fire TV, you're going to have to go to YouTube to get those links because, streaming platforms, you can't get everything that you pay for off of the streaming platforms. But on YouTube, you will find those links and you'll be able to go check it out. Thank you so much, Mondo. Really appreciate you coming on board and talking with us. And hopefully, we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Mike.